tend to over exaggerate these things. So
Right.
let me explain how it works. I had to explain it to people in my room. Is that when you have the unemployment report, first of all, only measures the amount of people that are unemployed that want to look for work.
That's
It
true.
doesn't measure people that had given up on work, doesn't measure people who are retired, doesn't measure those people at all. It only measured people that indicated in their survey that I'm actively looking for work and I don't have a job. Okay.
Okay.
But it also double counts people that has two jobs. Okay, so that's another thing that's a problem. That's why the household survey is more effective measurement of activity than the unemployment report. But the stock market cues off this. I think it's the U6 report or U3, whatever, one of those two, I forget. So that's how it works. So what happens though is that there's a fudge factor that they put in because the first week of August is when they look at July numbers, right? So you don't have enough time to measure if somebody got hired in July if they didn't do a payroll yet or just did a partial payroll yet. So what they do is they make an assumption that is called the birth-death model, that there was X amount of businesses more that were created than were extinguished. And they have a factor in there saying there's an X amount of number of employees that get hired in that environment. Okay. So then they go back and they look back over the year, right, with the actual data and say, oh, okay, well, that birth-death model was oversampled. And so now we have to do the revision down. So they give you the big macro thing, and then they go back and revise all the prior months to get it back in line. But this always happens. I think they always revise these things later. Usually the algos don't care, but we're at a point in time where it's the Fed's ready to lower interest rates. That's why the market is so strong now. They're front running that interest rate falling. The dollar fell today because the assumption that the economy is weakening because the job growth isn't as robust. And so certain stocks like that and certain stocks hate that. And so that's what it is. But it also puts a black eye on the administration. They would have their druthers. They would never talk about the revision, but that's where it is. That's why it happened. Yesterday in my podcast, the Trade Genius podcast that we do every day,
right.
we said a crime scene. We discovered a crime scene, because it's if it's not one thing, it's another. I mean, the level of deception, that goes with the government statistics is just appalling, and it wouldn't matter except that it matters, and to the extent that decisions have to be made based on the numbers that they give you.
So by overinflating the job numbers, the Fed then decided not to lower interest rates because they said we'll do that once we see the job numbers going down, and as long as they don't lower the interest rates, the stock market stays up and people with money are making money. It's Main Street that suffers until that's corrected. Now that the gig's up, now that the genie's out of the bottle, the Fed is going to start lowering. That will affect the stock market to some degree. If Trump comes in, my question is, if Harris gets in power, what does that do? And if Trump gets in, he's all right. He'll certainly lower interest rates to help fuel the economy for Main Street. Am I right?
Yeah, neither one of them can lower interest rates.
It's the Fed.
The Fed has the whole authority there. But Kamala Harris can come in and say, Jerome Powell, I'm firing you, and I'm bringing somebody else in who will listen to them. Trump can do the same thing. They're not important to that environment.
Right.
What's important is the policies that they have control over, and more importantly, the policies that he can enact as an executive or she can act as an executive. That makes a big difference. So Trump, his way of solving this problem is he's going to take it out of international trade, bring the jobs back into the United